This is the story of Dee Hamaguchi, the most legendary boxer you've probably never heard of.
She could have been a contender.
Yeah, not something you can say about Dee Hamaguchi, because she was and still is. And if you ever catch her at your local boxing gym, know that you're in the presence of the legendary fighter who pioneered amateur boxing for women everywhere. Deidre Yumi Hamaguchi was already an indomitable athlete before the fateful day in 1993 when she would learn about the Golden Gloves. Competitive in judo since childhood, it was clear by the time she was attending Yale that her architecture degree would move down a second string on her internal depth chart. Deidre's heart, mind, and body were on the mat, but after a win at the National Collegiate Judo Championship at the 1990 Empire State Games, Deidre was on the hunt for a new contact sport to conquer. It was in the gym where she had started training in karate that destiny would give her a sign. Literally, it was a notice for the 1993 New York Daily News Golden Gloves, a storied boxing tournament that had been around since 1926 and was considered one of the world's most elite titles. Said Deidre of the moment she laid eyes on it, quote, "Most of the boxers in the gym were gearing up for that tournament. I asked if women were allowed to enter and was told no." That no was all it took for her to step defiantly off the mat and into the ring and take it personally like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. In lieu of no checkbox for gender on her application, she simply filled in her first initial. And so it was that the now dubbed Dee Hamaguchi was the first woman to enter the Golden Gloves in its 68-year history. But getting to compete would be another story. When Dee was found out to be Deidre, she was mysteriously not informed of the mandatory scheduled physical exam. And just like that, she was disqualified. But her application sent a shockwave through the organization, and the immovable object prepared for the return of the unstoppable force. Dee's application the following year was met with a ready-made excuse. At 5'1" and 105 pounds, there was simply no one the Golden Gloves could pit against her, they said. Enlisting the help of lawyer Sarah Mandelbaum, Dee launched into the most influential fight of her life, forcing the Golden Gloves to contend with New York's gender discrimination laws. Said Mandelbaum of the fight for the future of the Golden Gloves, quote, "I never knew there were women who wanted to be a part of it. It turns out there were. When the competition was open to women in 1995, as a direct result of Dee's efforts, 40 women signed up. It was a watershed moment for the female fighters who had been waiting in the wings." Now, all eyes were on the Asian woman who officially put women's amateur boxing on the map, and the pressure was on. But despite hours of training in Harlem, it just wasn't enough for Dee to catch up to Jill Matthews, who was a much more seasoned boxer and who would become the eventual champion. "I was devastated," recalls Hamaguchi. "There were hundreds of cameras and reporters there, and after all my effort to get into the gloves, bang, I was out of the competition." So how does one recover from losing their first amateur fight and facing obscurity? Well, if you're Dee Hamaguchi, you go pro. Dee dedicated the next 5 years to working her way towards professional boxing, and along the way, she even won the U.S. National Judo Championships in 1998. And then in October of 2000, she would make her official debut in pro boxing with a fight against Gracie Jo Roca. The fight ended in a 4-round draw, but everyone was on notice that Dee had arrived. Dee would go on to have 14 more professional boxing matches with the natural highs and lows that come with competitive sports. She would hang up the gloves for good in 2019, and she did so with her head held high. When speaking of her eventual retirement, Hamaguchi once said, quote, "When I stop, I want it to be on my own terms. You're never a loser so long as you're still in the game." While her boxing career may not have had the storybook Rocky Balboa sort of ending, the battle she fought and won outside the ring in the early 90s holds more value than any championship belt. And thanks to Dee breaking the system, women like her are undeniably in the game, and their presence in combat sports grows every year, from 2015 Golden Gloves winner Jennifer Chang to MMA superstar Zhang Weili. When asked about her contribution to the sport, Dee said, quote, "The most important thing is that there are young girls who know already that boxing is something they could do." When it comes to following your passion, investing in yourself, and investing in other women, and setting an example for the next generation, it's very evident that Dee Hamaguchi clearly understood the assignment. This is John Lee Brody from NextShark Sports. See you next time.